Yeah, so we're trying to get real show busy here.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Barb Demaray, and this is What's Next? Conversations with Boomers. So we had a conversation about a topic that is really dear to my heart, and it was on self-love. And we had on our pod friend, Denise Torgerson, to talk about it. I knew she'd be the perfect guest for it. Mela, what did you think?
I loved it. I was
Good.
okay. This might be TMI. I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but we'll see. But I'm going through a nervous system reset. Perfectly timed for the new year, actually. So a lot of the things you guys were talking about self-soothing and being tender with yourself, that is currently what I am trying to practice because, yeah, it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job to constantly check yourself, readjust, check yourself, readjust because my old patterns are no longer working. You know, I've spent so much of my adult life, or so much of my life in general, in survival mode. And I think I hit a wall around New Year's Eve and my nervous system collapsed and I basically was so exhausted. It was like my body just gave up and I slept all of New Year's Eve and I didn't wake up till like probably 9 a.m. New Year's Day, not realizing that I had crashed so hard. So now I'm kind of like rebuilding and resetting. So a lot of the things you guys touched on, like being tender with yourself and practicing self-soothing methods and such, really resonated with me in this new era of whatever this is, recalibration, if you want to call it, that I'm going through.
I'm so glad. I hope you do keep that in because I'm telling you, whenever somebody becomes vulnerable and shares things like that are going on with themselves, there's thousands of people that are going through the same thing. I'm also trying to regulate my vagus nerve as well and doing all sorts of things to try and make that happen. So self-love is really important. And I thought it was a great conversation. So here is our conversation with Denise Torgerson on self-love. A big welcome to you, Denise.
Hello.
Hello. So glad to have you back. Happy New Year. So 3 months ago, I actually checked 3 months ago, you and I had a conversation about self-care versus selfish, which was, as always with you, it was a great conversation. So we thought about talking about self-love today. I just think it's an important topic for everybody. And because when you love yourself, life is truly better, in my opinion. So, Denise, let's start out by saying, what exactly do we mean when we say self-love?
Sure. I wrote it down. Good. Looked it up and wrote it down, right? I think it's good to have a shared place to jump off from. So treating yourself with the same kindness and respect and compassion you'd offer a dear friend, appreciating your worth, and taking actions that support your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and relational well-being, being accepting of your own flaws, and prioritizing your own happiness and growth, and setting boundaries. And I like the way Rick Hansen says it. It's so simple. He says, you know, just what does it feel like to be on your own side?
Oh, I love that. What is it like to be on your own side?
Your own side. Yeah.
To be your own champion, to be your own advocate, to be your own, cheerleader.
Yeah.
So, why is it so important?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I think it's a choice, but I also think it's a practice. I don't think it's, I'm going to love myself. And then I think we have to continue to practice it. So I think it's really important because we have this inner critic that really likes to beat us up.
And when we practice self-love, it softens. It softens that voice a little bit and gives us an opportunity to celebrate our goodness. We've talked about this before. Negative feelings stick like Velcro and positive things roll off like Teflon. Negativity bias. We're wired to be negative, to look for the negative in our lives because way back when, it's what kept us alive, right? We pay more attention to the tiger than we would to the flower because the tiger could eat us. So we're still wired that way. Our brains still work that way. So for my own experience, to take some time to pay attention to the positive things in our lives and the positive things about ourselves, because they don't stick. Our self-critic, our inner critic, it's got a bigger hold on us. Yeah. So
I love what you said, Denise, a few minutes ago. It softens the voice. When we love ourselves, that critic, those conversations we have with ourselves, we're not enough, we're not this or that. We compare ourselves to other people. When you start to learn to love yourself, that voice is softened.
yeah. I can't say it goes away. I don't even know that we'd want it to go away necessarily, but we can soften it. Yeah.
We don't, when we say self-love, sometimes I wonder if people interpret that as being, I'm number one always. And that can be at the expense of other people. I come first. My needs are more important than yours, my interests and everything. And that is not what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. No, I think a really important part of self-love is understanding that your life is relational, right? So, I mean, sometimes we put ourselves first, but not at the expense of our important relationships or friendships, right? I think that can backfire. People that do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this isn't what it is about. A lot of it is to protect ourselves. When I was looking it up, one of the words that came up was discipline. It requires discipline. We have to have the self-discipline to say no, because that's really in our best interest, to stop people pleasing. Have the discipline to, somebody's invited you somewhere, you absolutely are not into it, or the people you don't resonate with, to have the discipline to say no, or have the discipline to quit something that sometimes we're in organizations, whatever it is, lessons, and we get to a point where this just isn't doing it for me anymore. But I've committed and I've told everybody I'm doing this. To have the discipline to say, this isn't working for me anymore. I need to stop it and move on to something else because, I feel I'm moving in a different direction. So, and I had never heard it put that way before, but that's absolutely true. Would you agree?
Sure. I think part of my definition of self-love, though, is to soften towards yourself. So I would change the word discipline to practice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're saying exactly the same thing. But I think probably my upbringing, discipline to me has a negative connotation. So you have to.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, and then you start to beat yourself up because you don't have the discipline, right? Then we struggle with the struggle. So, yeah.
Right. What we mean is self-discipline, but I hear what you're saying.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. But I mean, my own inner self,
Mhm.
won't beat myself up if I don't have the discipline I need in any given moment. For lots of people, that word would really work, but not for me. The word doesn't work for me. How do I love myself when I don't have the discipline? Can I still love myself when I don't have the discipline to say no? Or self-love is a practice that happens in those times when you disappoint yourself, when you feeling emotions that you don't feel that you should be feeling, the shoulds and the should, right? Yeah. Yeah. And then to kind of move into a place of caring, tenderness for yourself. It's tender. I feel like the self-love is a tender vibe.
It is tender. But you demonstrated self-love just then when you were saying that word doesn't work for me.
Right.
And to name it and own it, and you're sure about it. That word doesn't work for me because it has very different connotations because of my upbringing, and I think it's a really good example.
Right. Yeah. We're saying the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
To have a practice of being able to say no, to have a practice of being able to stay in your own integrity. Those are acts of self-love. Yeah. Has to feel good.
It does have to feel good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have known you for a long time, and I experience you as somebody that has a lot of self-love. How you've managed challenging situations in your life, the sort of the resolve that you come to make it easier on yourself, and you commit to that.
Yeah. There's small acts of self-love, and then there's big acts of self-love. And I think the important word in all of the words that I said out loud so far was taking actions that support physical, mental, spiritual, relational. Yeah. So yeah, small actions and big actions. And I'm a process person, Barbie. I like to dive into what am I thinking and feeling about things. I think lately my biggest act of self-love has been to allow myself to feel my feelings.
To feel your feelings.
And I'm 67 years old, and I'm finally allowing myself to feel my feelings, right? And I name them and acknowledge that they're there, and not struggle with it, right? Yeah.
Was that hard for you?
Oh yeah. Oh, for heaven's sake.
Mm.
I mean, I think we're the same. We kind of grew up in a house where, we don't talk about those things.
Yeah. We both grew up in kind of a chaotic environment, and yeah, there were certain things you didn't say because you're walking on eggshells and you don't want to rock the boat, and yeah. So, Denise, I'm still working on it too, and I'm we're in the same age group, but I'm even older. I'm even more than 67, and I'm still okay. I've got to get better at this.
Well,
The
latest I guess therapies, for lack of a better word, but they're talking about not trying to change an emotion, but to welcome it. To the way to help yourself, the most loving act when you're feeling something is to move towards it and allow it to be there. With anger, not necessarily acting it out, but acknowledging it and knowing that you have it and that it's okay. A sentence that I learned a long time ago that I like to use is instead of saying, particularly with anger, because I do, not that I'm angry, but I'm having anger. So I'm having this emotion. I'm not identified as this emotion. That's helpful to me. Yeah.
Remember in the early years of coaching, and we've talked about this before, how we were taught and then we used with clients is, ask somebody what they're feeling and to invite them to go totally into that feeling, feel it fully, and ask them to describe what it feels like. And then the longer you're speaking to them, it slowly starts to dissipate.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. There is a certain amount of time that you can feel a feeling before it starts to dissipate. To feel a feeling without having the story around it and just let it sit in it. So that's one thing I do. Lately, my own practice, I've been doing the loving kindness meditation every morning.
Say more about that.
So it's called Mela, and it's Buddhist. So it starts with sometimes you start with other people and then you bring it back to yourself. But may I have peace. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. May you have peace. Right? You imagine people in your mind. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May we have peace. So yourself, a friend, another friend, your community, all the way, you can go all the way to may all creatures have peace. And
Mm.
those are some words that are used in loving kindness meditation. There's other ones. May we feel love.
Is that Sharon Strasberg? I
Yeah.
think that's her last name.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, she's Meta.
That's right. She's well
Yeah.
known for that particular
Mhm.
meditation.
So let's give some more examples of small acts of self-love.
You have one?
Well, I think, just to capitalize on what you've already said, learning to forgive yourself is, we all make mistakes. And I tend to ruminate if I've said something or I don't say something that I should have said. I will ruminate on it. And it's ridiculous. And I think it does help to say, you know, I'm as human as everybody else. And part of being human is making mistakes. And if you acknowledge that that was a mistake, you either A, apologize to the person, or B, not to do it again and leave it at that. Okay, I learned that. I tend to be careless around a lot of things. I wish I put more attention on detail, and I don't. I tend to sort of scan things and forget, important pieces of information. And I get really hard on myself. There I go again. Of course I didn't even notice that. Of course I forgot that. And just sort of allowing myself, okay, I'm not a detail person, which I am in some things, but not in many things. But just being able to acknowledge our humanness, and we make mistakes. That's part, we can't always say the right things. We can't always do the right things. And it allows us, when you forgive yourself, it allows you to also forgive other people.
So I'm a tapper, right? EFT, I tap.
Yes, yes.
That up statement used in tapping is, even though I made a mistake and said the wrong thing in that conversation, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So that's the set. I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So even though I feel, so that and in both piece, I don't know, maybe it's our age, maybe it's the times, maybe, but I think humaning is really difficult. I think we need to get to the fucking slack, man. Yeah, I think
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, because we do make mistakes. We all have character flaws. We all have weaknesses. There's always something that somebody does better or they've achieved more or whatever. And we tend to be, oh gosh, why didn't I do that? Oh gosh, I only, did A, B, and C, and they did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, blah, blah.
Here's the act of self-love. Stop comparing.
Exactly. Yes. Stop comparing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because when we really think about it, everything balances out. So person A is much stronger and more accomplished in whatever, but I know that I'm really good at this. And I think it's important for us to remind ourselves the same as we do with our children. If they are putting themselves down, yeah, but look at how good you are at running, or look at how good you are at coloring, or whatever it is. We've all got our strengths. We want to be able to acknowledge them to ourselves.
Okay. That's right. Yes. Yeah. With social media in particular, comparing's a big problem, I think, right now. Right?
It's a killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody's life is perfect. And what people are choosing to display on social media is, I mean, for one thing, it's often old staged. So it's not even, very little of it that's real. But you don't know anything else about the rest of their life. So yeah, and I think that's something that we all do.
So awareness, that's another act of self-love, self-awareness.
Awareness.
I think it's powerful to be aware of what you're in any given moment, that whole mindfulness piece. So small acts of self-love for me I get up before anybody else does. I need at least an hour, maybe 2 or 3 by myself before anybody else wanders into the living room. Meditations in the morning right now I'm doing. I've brought tapping back into my life, so I'm doing tapping every day. I hurt myself, so I've just decided to be really kind to myself, and I'll like give myself my body time to heal and not push that. I think as we get older, kindness towards ourselves, self-love is crucial because so many things change, right?
It is crucial.
Our bodies change.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to lower the expectations we have of ourselves. You know, we're not 20 anymore. We're not even 40 anymore or 50. So, and it's okay if you can't do what you could do before. It's okay. You focus on what you can do. And there are many things. Denise, will you explain to the listeners what EFT is?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Emotional freedom technique. It's also known as tapping. So there are meridians, little points on our bodies that help us move energy. So I use it a lot to kind of process an emotion. So even though I'm feeling so sad right now, I choose to deeply and completely love and accept myself. And you just going through the tapping points, and the more room you give whatever it is that you're tapping on, the more it changes and moves. I don't know how else to say that. Yeah, emotional freedom technique.
How has it helped you?
Well, the first time I ever did tapping, I thought it was stupid. I thought it was just this. Oh, well, this is really stupid, but sure, I'll do it with whoever was on the interview. And the tap was on I think it was on self-love or being good enough. Even though it feels like I'm not good enough, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And so we went through this whole tapping. I think we did about 3 rounds, maybe 4, all the words around feeling not good enough. And then they got on with the interview. And I thought to myself, well, that was kind of silly. But what happened then, I had to drive out in Prince George. It's called the Hard Highway. I had to drive out of town on the highway to get somewhere. And I hate driving. And I particularly hate driving on the highway. I get really, really anxious. But I do. So anyways, I finished what I was doing and got in the car. I waited for the anxiety. I waited for the heat, the sweats. I was watching my breathing. None of those things happened.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like, oh, I look at me just driving up the highway. No problem at all. Yeah. And I directly correlated to the tapping. So yeah, I think for anxiety or self-love, tapping is really, really powerful. But you can tap on it.
I'm going to ask you a question, and we can keep this in or not. Would you be willing to make yourself available to listeners who are interested in tapping and want to tap with you?
Sure.
Okay. At the end, I'll ask for your contact information if people are interested. Because I will say, listeners, I have tapped with Denise many times, and it is really effective. It's easy to do. You're literally just, as Denise is showing you, just tapping these meridian points, whatever it is that you're dealing with, and it's really effective. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to just, there's a caveat there, though. I should say, I'm not a therapist. So trauma is a specific skill set that I don't have. So just
Okay,
know that.
not trauma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say one more thing about self-love.
Yes.
We tend to struggle with the struggle. I heard it a lot in people who are grieving. I shouldn't feel like this. I should be over this by now. What the heck's wrong with you? Right? So we struggle with the fact that we're going through something really hard and it's bringing up stuff up. And just a small act of self-love will help you to let go of that struggle. You're supposed to be feeling this way. It's okay if it's hard. So just to give yourself permission to go through the struggles that you're going through, the way that you go through them.
Right. And with grief especially, everybody goes through it differently, right? There's no foolproof formula.
No, that's the thing about grief. It's not step 1, step 2, step 3. That's for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just feel what we're feeling and it's okay. So this is an article just written this last December. It's written by a woman named Krista Bannister. And the article is titled, Why Self-Love Matters More Than You Think. So I'll just read a little bit of it. So many women move through life believing they must be everything for everyone. They care deeply. They work hard. They show up even when they are exhausted. But beneath that responsibility and resilience, there is often a quiet sense of unworthiness. Self-love feels like an afterthought or something other people seem to understand, but you were never taught. In reality, self-love is not indulgent or selfish. It is foundational to emotional health. It influences how we cope with stress, how you form relationships, how you take care of your body and mind. And when women begin to understand what it truly is, they often find that healing becomes more accessible than they ever imagined. So she's given a bit of a list. Self-love includes listening to your needs. And Denise, you've alluded to that several times. Speaking to yourself with compassion, also echo what you have said, Denise. Setting boundaries that protect your well-being. So that would be, go back to when we were talking about the ability to say no. Or I think, sometimes that means cutting certain people out of your life. If you don't feel safe around that person, you don't feel respected, prioritizing rest as much as productivity. Do you ever notice that people feel that they have to be productive in a day? And if not, there's some kind of a loser or a less than person, that resting is not allowed. We have to be productive.
Yeah. Yeah, I notice that a lot. Yeah, that's cultural. That's our culture. Even it feels like it's gotten worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bad, actually.
It's really bad. Yeah.
Mm.
So, right, I'm going to say it again, prioritizing rest as much as productivity. And again, echoing Denise, honoring your emotions rather than ignoring them. So this is so much of what you've already said, Denise. So there's a lot more to this article. Why self-love is difficult for many women. Chronic self-criticism, difficulty resting without guilt, constant comparison, again, what we've talked about, fear of disappointing others, so people-pleasing, believing your needs are less important, intimacy disorders. And then she says, some emotional benefits of self-love include stronger resilience during stress, improved mood and emotional balance, healthier processing of shame and self-doubt, greater ability to self-soothe, increased sense of hope and possibility. All those things are wonderful. So being able to love yourself, knowing what that looks like, is a huge contributor, as you said in the beginning, Denise, to our emotional and physical well-being.
Mhm. Yeah. So my year and a half, I guess it's been since I retired, I am learning how to rest. That's my lesson. And every time I think, okay, there, I hurt myself. And so I have to learn how to rest. Yeah. Learning how to rest because it's so foreign when you're in the working world. No, rest is
Yeah,
not.
you don't rest.
I find it easier to love myself if I have sleep. If I am rested, I'm much kinder to myself if I'm rested.
Sleep is the great elixir. It's when we heal, when we reset. And more and more, we're reading how important it is. It's as important as or more than eating your vegetables. eating well, get good quality sleep. Although it's so difficult for some people, as hard as they try. We did have a woman on one time talking about sleep hygiene. So, but you're absolutely right. When we're well rested, we're just much more able to cope, and we are more able to exercise those little ways that we can express love to ourselves.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I went through a bout of not sleeping, and man, what oh, talk about struggle with the struggle. Yeah.
Oh, it's awful when you can't sleep. And then the more you can't sleep, the harder it gets because you're mad because you can't sleep, and that in itself keeps you awake. And yeah. Okay, Denise, anything else that we can add to this?
I think we've been pretty comprehensive, I think.
What does it mean to love yourself? It doesn't mean to be selfish, and it doesn't mean to be conceited. It doesn't mean that you're bragging, or it doesn't mean that you feel that you're more important than anybody else. It's essentially a way of keeping your mental, your emotional and physical well-being in check. It really does, it aid hugely in feeling good and contributes to our general sense of happiness. I mean, I know because I've always had a really hard time saying no, but when I do, I just feel so much better. I just think, okay, you maybe disappointed somebody for 5 minutes, but it's fine. And you know that was the right thing to do for you, for your own sense of well-being.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was that it's relational, right? The more I can love myself, the more open I can be, sort of the wider my boundaries become because I'm safe. I know who I am and I know what I will and won't do, right? Although it's an inner work that you do on yourself, the benefits are your relationships with other people really shine.
I think that's a really, really good point. And also, people that treat other people unkindly or they're disrespectful, they're usually people who do not love themselves. Would you agree?
Yeah, sure. I do agree with that. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I think we're better able to be kind and compassionate to others when we're kind and compassionate to ourselves.
Mhm. I think so.
Oh.
I have a question.
Look at Mela
Sorry.
today, Denise. She looks like a model.
Doesn't
Oh,
she? Yeah.
stop.
Really?
Stop. I have a question. Okay, so you mentioned something about self-soothing. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What does it mean to self-soothe?
Well, to self-soothe, I mean, or some examples of ways that I self-soothe is that I create an environment in my home that is soothing, that makes me feel really good. And that is one of the great benefits of living by yourself because you don't have to consult anybody. So I will light candles, I'll put music on, I'll dim the lights, and I do all that because it just feels so calming and restful. And then I'm really proud of myself. I'll just say, this is just great. There's nobody here, but this is
But do you
so
mean, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's okay. Go ahead. Do I
But do
mean
you mean when you're self-soothe, do you mean that you're soothing yourself after a certain event that happened that may trigger something in you that requires that moment to be employed, so to speak?
often I do that if I've had a struggle of some sort during the day. Often I'll do it just because I think about it and I think, let's put some candles on. Part of it I think is learning to know what you need to do to soothe yourself.
I guess what I was trying to drive at is like self-soothing in a sense in the context of, I guess, anxiety maybe, or if you perhaps find yourself in like a mental loop of I'm not good enough, I'm horrible, I'm unlovable, that's not in the third.
Can I talk for a sec? Can I say
Yes,
something?
please. Yeah.
So, what I noticed for myself when I was having conversations with people who were grieving, even in that moment, I would find myself touching my own heart.
Uh-huh.
That's an act of soothing, right? Often people will just sort of, it's an act of soothing. So it can happen in the moment. When I was in a really high anxiety state, I would self-soothe. So what does it feel like to be on my own side, right? Those words went through my head a lot. I'm all right now. So yeah. When you've had a bad day, soothing and anxiety, way to break that loop. Yeah. Sometimes though, touch is really quite powerful. When you give yourself,
Mm-hmm.
put your hand on your heart.
Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that made it clearer or more muddled, but yeah.
No, that's great. And you've had so much experience dealing with it with other people who were grieving. Denise, you're such a great source. Mela, those things that I was talking about that I do, because as you know, I suffer from a lot of anxiety and I have to work at it and do what I know is going to calm me.
Mm-hmm. I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Would you say that there are, I don't want to say a downside, but would there be instances where people will mistake self-love for an act of selfishness, right? Or like some people may use that as an excuse to not, for example, not honor your boundaries or something, or I'm just going to do this because this is what I want to do. And, this is self-love. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, probably there's people that do
I'm
that.
going to let you answer that, Denise.
I mean, it takes all kinds, right? So probably, but I think that eventually that person is going to understand that's not self-love, that in fact doing their life that way is probably going to eventually have negative effects on their life, right? I'm going to do it because I want to do it, and that's what self-love is. Other people might not buy into that. I don't know. Barb, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I agree. And if that is selfish, especially because Denise, you've brought up the word relational a couple of times. And when you're practicing true self-love, it does enhance our relationships. If you're acting in a way that upsets a lot of people or is not showing consideration to other people, I don't call that self-love either. That's, well, selfish. We know what, selfish is selfish. It's not self-love. Sometimes people will do things and really it's at the expense of other people. They'll want to do something that works for them, but it inconveniences everybody else. Well, that's not self-love. I'll just say it again. When you practice true self-love, your relationships improve.
And I think self-love is really around appreciation, right? Appreciating yourself, right? But I'm not that sure, Mela. There's lots of people out there that's what they do. Sure. Mhm. Yeah.
I agree. Did we answer your question, Mela?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like sometimes it's a convenient way for people to justify their actions, like, so I know somebody who swears by the four agreements, and sometimes I feel like they don't fully grasp the meaning behind it, or they lose the plot altogether by saying like, okay, like I'm not going to take things personally. Like even though, for example, like this particular person that I know, have done something very hurtful to me, but because he lives by the whole thing of I'm not going to take it personally, then it gives him permission to not take my feelings into account. Or do you know what I mean? Like it's like a convenient excuse to be like, well, I'm not going to take it personally, or I'm honoring what I need at that moment because I have self-love. And, there's kind of like that fine line of distinguishing what is self-love and how, like, it could be beneficial to myself, but is it hurting somebody else in my life, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like I'm all over the map.
I think there's probably many people that misinterpret that book and what those 4 agreements really mean. What do you
Right.
think, Denise?
Oh, yeah, I think so, for sure. I'm trying to remember what they all are, and I can't remember them all.
Let me
Think-
Google it real quick.
Okay.
Be impeccable with your word. Always do your
impeccable with your-
best. Don't make assumptions and don't take things personally. Don't take anything personally.
So from my perspective, listening to those, I don't hear in any of those. And so I can hurt your feelings. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? You can be impeccable with your word in a loving way.
Yes.
What's your
Yes.
intent? And so to fall back on, I live my life through the 4 agreements. That doesn't wash for me. You know, like, okay, off you go then, take your 4 agreements and wander away. Because, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
It doesn't
agree.
give people permission to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It doesn't give people permission to hurt other people. Absolutely.
Right.
Nothing gives permission for anybody to hurt anybody else.
Right.
Yeah, it never works. Okay. Thank you for chiming in, Mela. We always
course.
love it. Thank you, Denise.
Well, thank you.
Another-
That was good. That was a good chat.
It was a good chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. In conclusion, what are your final thoughts around this, Denise?
Well, I guess I would first of all say thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And my final thoughts is, again, going back to that, I think I said the word at least once, but in terms of self-love, going back to that tenderness, and how do you treat yourself with tenderness, with care, you know? I think that's probably my final thought.
That's good. I would agree. And I would also, I just want to pick up on what you said earlier in the conversation, softening your words, softening your language to yourself, and the relational piece. And truly, when we learn to love ourselves and what that means, it really does improve our relationship. Our number one relationship, the relationship you have with yourself, and therefore with other people. Okay, so Denise, if anybody wants to reach you to practice tapping with you, how can they reach you?
So, Barbie, if you don't mind, I think the best way for them, because I don't have a website or anything like that. So,
Right.
if they emailed you and you CC'd me, that would be the best way to do it.
Okay. So our email is convoswithboomers@gmail.com. And just put in the subject line tapping
Or EFT.
or EFT, right. Many thanks to you, Denise, again, for another wonderful, I'm going to call it soul-enriching conversation. They're always so good. And, we love having you on, and we'll have you back. Absolutely.
Thank you. That was a really fun conversation. And I appreciate those words, soul enriching. That means a lot to me, Barbie.
It's true. It's very true.